Dr. Eliza Morgan had just finished her long night shift at the city hospital. The clock on the wall showed 11:47 p.m. Most of the hospital lights were already off, and the halls were quiet. She picked up her bag, waved goodbye to the night nurse, and walked out the back door. It was a cold night. The wind was sharp, and her coat wasn't warm enough, but she didn't mind. She had helped save a child today. That was enough to make her smile. The hospital parking lot was nearly empty. Only a few cars were left. Her heels clicked softly against the pavement as she walked toward her car. A soft humming noise came from a distant streetlight that flickered above. She paused for a moment, looking up at the dark sky. It had no stars that night, just a thick blanket of clouds. As she reached her car, she heard something. Footsteps. Quick, heavy, behind her. She turned around, confused. "Hello," she called out, her voice a little shaky. No one replied. A shadow moved behind the trees near the edge of the lot. Her heart started to race. "Is someone there?" she asked again, louder this time. Suddenly, a man stepped out of the darkness. He was wearing a black hoodie. His face was hidden. He didn't say a word. Eliza froze. She couldn't move. Her mind screamed run, but her body didn't listen. The man raised his hand. A gun. Bang. The first shot hit her shoulder. She fell to the ground, gasping in pain. Bang. Bang. 2 more bullets, one in her chest, one near her neck. The man walked slowly toward her, looked down at her face, and then disappeared into the night. Everything went quiet. Her phone buzzed in her bag. It was her husband calling. But she couldn't move her hand. She couldn't speak. Blood spread around her like a red flower blooming on the pavement. A security guard heard the noise and came running. He shouted for help. "Call 911. A woman's being shot." Minutes later, police cars and an ambulance arrived. Flashing lights filled the lot. Paramedics tried to stop the bleeding, but it was too late. Eliza Morgan was gone. The hospital staff stood outside in shock. Nurses cried. One of the doctors dropped to his knees. A kind, gentle doctor was killed for no reason. Everyone kept asking, why? Who would do this? Then a black car stopped near the edge of the crime scene. A tall man stepped out. It was Daniel Morgan, Eliza's husband. His eyes scanned the area. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He just looked at her body quietly. "Sir, I'm sorry," an officer said gently. "Are you her husband?" Daniel nodded slowly. His face was calm, too calm. He walked up to the crime tape. "Can I see her?" he asked. We can't let anyone close yet. It's a fresh crime scene." Daniel didn't argue. He simply turned away and stared at the bullet casings on the ground. He noticed something strange. One of the shells was marked with a red X. He looked up at the nearby security camera. Without saying a word, he pulled out his phone and took a photo of the camera's angle. Then, he got back in his car and drove away. The officers looked at each other. One of them whispered, "That man just lost his wife." But he didn't even look shocked. Meanwhile, in a small office inside the police station, a young officer named Maya sat in front of her desk, reading the report. She blinked at the screen and said softly, "Eliza Morgan, ER doctor. No enemies, no criminal record, no known threats." Then she saw the husband's name. Daniel Morgan. Her eyes narrowed. "That name sounds familiar," she whispered to herself. Back at home, Daniel entered a locked room in the basement. It had no lights, no windows. He turned on a small lamp. On the table were papers, maps, and an old photograph of a police team from years ago. At the center of that photo was a man in uniform. It was him, Daniel. The funeral was held 3 days after Eliza's death. A cold wind blew across the cemetery as people gathered around her coffin. Her hospital colleagues stood in silence, their faces pale and wet with tears. Nurses, doctors, even some old patients had come to say goodbye. Everyone expected her husband, Daniel, to break down, to cry, to fall to his knees in pain. But he didn't. Daniel Morgan stood still, dressed in a black suit, his face emotionless. He looked at the coffin like it was a closed door he had already walked through long ago. Not once did he wipe his eyes. Not once did he whisper her name. Some people whispered behind him. Is he in shock? Why doesn't he cry? Did he even love her? Even Eliza's sister Anna stared at him with confusion. Why is he acting like a stranger? She said quietly to a friend. This doesn't feel right. After the ceremony, people left flowers and slowly returned to their cars. But Daniel didn't move. He just stood there alone, staring at the ground. Finally, he walked to the coffin, placed a single white rose on top, and said under his breath, I told you they'd come for you. I'm sorry. Then he turned and walked away. That evening, Officer Maya sat at her desk again. She couldn't stop thinking about the case. She had watched the funeral on the news. Something about Daniel bothered her. She opened his file again. Daniel Morgan, age 42. Husband. No criminal record. No job listed. No job? Maya frowned. How does he pay the bills? That house isn't cheap. She checked deeper. Bank records, taxes, employment history. Nothing. It was as if Daniel appeared out of nowhere 10 years ago, the same year he married Eliza. Maya's curiosity grew stronger. She dug through old online archives, social media, hospital event photos. Then she found something strange. An old photo from a charity event at the hospital, taken 9 years ago. In the background, Daniel was speaking to a man in a military uniform. They were shaking hands, but Daniel was wearing a badge, a police badge. Wait, I thought he wasn't a cop, Maya whispered. She zoomed in. There it was, Daniel in uniform. She quickly opened the police database and searched for his name. No record found. She tried searching by photo. Nothing. Frustrated, she showed the photo to an older detective, Officer Grant, who had been with the force for 30 years. Do you recognize this man? Maya asked. Grant squinted at the image. He froze. Where did you get this? It's from a hospital event years ago. That's Daniel Morgan. He was Eliza's husband. She's the woman who was gunned down. Grant stepped back. His face went pale. We used to call him the ghost, he said slowly. Maya blinked. The ghost? Grant nodded. He was part of something. Off the books. Special undercover operations. No files, no names. Just results. He disappeared after a mission went wrong years ago. We all thought he was dead. Maya sat down, stunned. Why would a ghost marry a doctor and then show no pain after she dies? Grant looked her in the eye. Because maybe he wasn't just her husband. That night, Daniel sat alone in his living room. A soft rain tapped against the windows. The lights were dim. He held a small photo in his hands, Eliza in her white coat, smiling. He whispered, You had no idea what I did, but you loved me anyway. He reached into a drawer and pulled out a black notebook. Inside were names, dates, and codes. On the last page, one line was written in red ink. If Eliza dies, it means they found me. Suddenly, his phone buzzed. A message appeared. Unknown number. She warned you. You didn't listen. Now we're coming for the rest. Daniel stared at the message. His hand tightened into a fist. Then he stood up, walked to the closet, and opened a hidden safe behind his suits. Inside was a gun, a passport, and a key card labeled Unit X, Level 3 Access. He looked at the gun for a long time. Then he said one word, It's time. The next morning, Officer Maya sat at her desk with the photo of Daniel in uniform still open on her screen. She couldn't stop thinking about what the older detective, Grant, had said. We used to call him the ghost. She had read stories about secret operations, but never imagined one of those men could be walking freely among them, married to a doctor, living like a regular husband. She clicked through more files, digging deeper. Still, no official record of Daniel Morgan as a police officer. No fingerprint history. No background check. It was like he had never existed. But Maya didn't stop. She walked into the records room and looked for all case boxes from 10 to 15 years ago. She had a feeling, if Daniel really was part of something secret, maybe his face showed up somewhere, even if his name didn't. After hours of digging, she found something. A dusty, unmarked box. Inside were old photos, papers, and mission reports from a task force called Unit X. The team worked on high-risk missions that were never made public, things too dangerous for normal police. She picked up a photo from the bottom of the box. Her heart skipped a beat. Daniel was in it, standing with 5 other men, all in black gear. No names, no badges, just serious faces. She flipped the photo over. A handwritten note read, Unit X, 2011. Mission, Red Mask. Maya rushed back to her desk. She scanned the photo and ran a reverse search online. Nothing. Then she tried something new. She searched the term mission, Red Mask. Only one old article came up, from a private blog that had since been deleted. It said, a doctor in the city hospital saved a man who was supposed to die. That man knew secrets. After that night, 3 officers disappeared. One was known as the Ghost. No one saw him again. Maya leaned back, shocked. A doctor saved a man. Eliza was a doctor. Was it her? Meanwhile, Daniel drove through the city quietly, dressed in a plain hoodie and sunglasses. He stopped in front of an old, run-down building in the industrial area. He walked through a back entrance and into a dark hallway. At the end of the hallway was a metal door with a fingerprint scanner. He placed his hand on it. Beep, access granted. The door opened. Inside was a small hidden room. Monitors, old files, radio equipment. It looked like a command center from a spy movie. Daniel sat down and turned on one of the monitors. He opened a folder titled Targets. Eliza's photo was at the top of the list, with a red line through it. His eyes filled with quiet pain, but he stayed calm. He clicked another folder. Unknown threat. Active. Inside were files about a police officer named Chief Ronald Blake. Daniel's face hardened. He's still pulling the strings, he whispered. And now he's using the badge to do it. Back at the station, Maya went to Grant again. I found something. Daniel was part of Unit X. Their last mission was Red Mask. Grant's face turned serious. Red Mask was bad business. That mission went wrong. The target escaped. People died. Maya nodded. And guess what? A doctor saved the target. It could have been Eliza. Grant looked at her carefully. That means Daniel didn't just marry her. He was protecting her. But why wouldn't he tell anyone? Maya asked. Grant answered, because when you're in the shadows, you trust no one, not even the people you love. That night, Maya received an anonymous envelope at her apartment door. Inside was a USB drive. She plugged it into her laptop. A single video file played. It showed Eliza in the hospital, talking to a man in a red jacket. He looked nervous. He handed her a file and whispered something. Maya paused the video. The man in the red jacket was also in the Unit X photo. She checked the timestamp, just 2 days before Eliza was murdered. What were you trying to tell her? Maya whispered. Suddenly, her phone rang. Unknown number. She picked it up. Hello? A deep voice replied. Stop digging, officer, or you'll end up like her. Click. The line went dead. Maya sat frozen, fear crawling up her spine. But she didn't stop. She whispered to herself, Daniel didn't kill his wife. He's trying to finish what she started. Night was cold and quiet when Daniel returned home. The house still smelled like Eliza's favorite candles, vanilla and sandalwood. Every corner reminded him of her laughter, her books, her soft humming in the kitchen. But Daniel wasn't here to grieve. He walked into the study and locked the door. Then he pulled back the carpet near the bookshelf and tapped the wooden floor 3 times. A soft click. One plank lifted up. Underneath was a steel box. Inside it were 3 things: a small hard drive, a worn leather notebook, a photo of Eliza, smiling while holding a newborn baby in her arms. Daniel stared at the photo for a long time. His eyes softened. Then he opened the notebook. Inside, Eliza had written notes in her neat handwriting. Patient number 41 came in with gunshot wounds. Said someone inside the department wanted him dead. Gave me a name, Chief Ronald Blake. Daniel read faster. His hands began to shake. He was scared. He told me there's a list. Names of officers secretly working for criminals. Blake is protecting them. He said if anything happens to him, or to me, I must give this to someone I trust. Eliza had known. She wasn't just a doctor who got caught in something big. She had walked into danger to protect the truth. Daniel clenched his jaw. You tried to warn me, he whispered. But I was too late. He plugged the hard drive into his laptop. Thousands of documents opened. Emails, bank transfers, names. It was a list of corrupt officers, secret payments, secret meetings. And at the top of it all, Chief Ronald Blake. Across the city, Officer Maya sat in her tiny apartment, surrounded by papers. She hadn't slept all night. She kept going through the USB file, pausing at the man in the red jacket who gave Eliza the file. She ran a facial recognition check and finally got a name. James Holder, ex-undercover agent, disappeared 5 years ago. Maya's heart pounded. She looked up hospital records. 2 days before Eliza's death, James was checked into the ER under a fake name. Eliza treated him. That's when it all started. She whispered to herself. She knew something big, and someone wanted her silent. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. 3 knocks, sharp, loud. Maya stood up slowly. She peeked through the peephole. A man in a black jacket stood there, not moving. She didn't open it. Instead, she whispered, Daniel, if you're out there, I'm on your side. Then the man walked away. Meanwhile, Daniel sat in the shadows of a hidden internet cafe, uploading the hard drive contents to a secure cloud. He opened a private message and sent one line. The truth is coming. Be ready. Then he opened the notebook again. On the last page, Eliza had drawn a map. It led to a storage unit outside the city. She had written, If I don't make it, go here. James said it's the only copy. The next day, Daniel drove to the address. It was a quiet, dusty storage lot. Most units were locked and forgotten. Unit 76. He opened it with Eliza's key. Inside was nothing but a large box and a metal locker. He opened the box first. Files, photos, medical records. All connected to injured officers who were never officially listed. Men wounded during illegal missions. Some names were circled. Some had X through them. Then he opened the metal locker. Inside was a tape recorder. He pressed play. James Holder's voice came through, weak but clear. If you're hearing this, I'm likely dead. I was part of a secret team, working under orders we didn't understand. We were told to erase people, clean up messes. But those messes were innocent. One night, I saw the truth. Chief Blake, he wasn't cleaning the system, he was protecting his own power. Eliza, she was the only one who listened. She promised to find help. But they were watching her. Watching us. I don't know how long we have. Daniel pressed stop. His heart was pounding. Now he had everything. The truth, the proof, the motive. But the clock was ticking. At the same time, inside a dark office in the police department, Chief Ronald Blake looked at a tablet. Daniel's photo was on the screen. He turned to 2 men in black suits. I want him found, and I want everything he has, before it reaches the media. One of the men nodded. What about the young officer? Maya. Blake's face twisted into a smile. Keep her alive. For now. She'll lead us right to him. The morning sky was gray as Officer Maya stepped into the police station. Everything felt different. Colder, quieter. She walked toward her desk, but something felt wrong. Her computer screen was missing. Her drawers were locked. A few officers whispered and looked away as she passed. Suddenly, Chief Ronald Blake appeared behind her. Maya, he said calmly. Come with me. Maya followed him into his office. The door clicked shut behind them. Chief Blake looked serious, but not angry. I've been hearing things, he said. You've been looking into Daniel Morgan and the Eliza Morgan case. Is that true? Maya kept her voice steady. Yes, sir. I believe there's more to the story. He nodded slowly. And you've been digging into old records, talking to retired officers, collecting evidence? Yes, she said. Because I think Eliza found something. I think she was killed for it. Blake leaned forward. His voice dropped. And what if I told you? There's nothing to find. Maya stared at him. Sir. He stood up and walked toward the window. There are things you don't understand, Maya. Things that were never meant to be opened. You're young, smart, but sometimes curiosity kills the cat. Then he turned back to her and smiled. I'm putting you on leave. Effective immediately. Maya's heart dropped. What? On what grounds? Blake walked to his desk and placed a file in front of her. Inside were fake photos, edited images of Maya meeting with Daniel, emails she never sent, even a fake bank deposit. You've been compromised, Blake said softly. You're under investigation. Maya stood frozen. These are lies. Maybe, Blake replied, but who will believe you? He opened the door. 2 officers were waiting outside. Escort Officer Maya out of the building. Collect her badge and gun. Maya looked around in disbelief. Her co-workers didn't even look at her. Just like that, she was out. That evening, Daniel stood on a rooftop across from the station. He had seen it all. Maya being walked out, her face shocked and betrayed. He knew Blake was moving faster now. He called a secure number. Maya answered, her voice shaky. Hello? It's me, Daniel said. Where were you? She asked. They think I'm helping you. They've suspended me. I saw, he replied. I'm sorry. You shouldn't be in this. I chose this, she said. And I'm not quitting. Daniel smiled for the first time in days. There's a safe place, he said. Meet me there. Later that night, Maya arrived at an old motel outside the city. Room 14. She knocked twice. Daniel opened the door. He looked tired, worn out, but sharp. On the table were files, a laptop, and Eliza's notebook. Maya looked around. So this is where the ghost hides? Daniel gave a small laugh. Not hiding anymore. He handed her a folder. Everything's here. Proof that Blake runs a secret network inside the force. Money laundering. Dirty missions. Silencing people. Maya flipped through the pages, her eyes wide. And Eliza, she asked. Daniel nodded slowly. She treated a man who gave her this. She didn't know who to trust. She was scared, but she kept digging. And she paid the price, Maya whispered. Daniel's face darkened, not just her. He walked to his bag and pulled out a second photo. This time of a young boy. My son, he said. Eliza gave birth in secret. She sent him away before all this started. I haven't seen him in 3 years. She knew someone would come for her. Maya felt her throat tighten. We have to end this. We will, Daniel said. But we can't go through the system. Blake owns it. So what do we do? Daniel pointed to the laptop. We go public. The next day, a new video was uploaded online. It showed documents, Eliza's notes, and parts of the James Holder recording. Faces were blurred, but the message was clear. Corruption runs deep in the department. Eliza Morgan tried to stop it. She was silenced. We won't be. The video spread fast. People started asking questions. Blake watched the news in his office, his jaw tight. They're forcing my hand, he muttered. He turned to one of his men. Find the motel. Find them. No more warnings. That night, as Daniel and Maya planned their next move, a car rolled quietly into the motel parking lot. Inside were 2 men in black suits. One whispered, Room 14. Orders are clear. They stepped out of the car, guns in hand. Inside, Daniel froze. He sensed something. He grabbed Maya's arm. We need to go. Now. They slipped out the back door just as the front door exploded open. The room went dark, empty. They were gone. The wind blew hard as Daniel and Maya ran through the trees behind the motel. The sound of sirens and shouting faded behind them. They had escaped, barely. They stopped near an old train track, catching their breath. That was too close, Maya said, panting. Daniel nodded. They're not playing anymore. Blake knows we're getting close. Maya looked at him. So what's the plan now? Daniel pulled a folded paper from his jacket pocket. Eliza left one last clue. A letter she wrote before she died. He handed it to her. The paper was old, with her handwriting. If anything happens to me, don't fight them directly. Expose them, but carefully. You'll need someone inside. Someone clean. Someone strong. Daniel said, "There's one man who used to work with me. Lieutenant Harris. He left the department years ago. He was never part of Blake's circle. Can we trust him?" Maya asked. "He saved my life once," Daniel said. "Let's hope he still believes in justice." Later that night, they met Harris at a quiet diner on the edge of town. He was older now, gray hair, tired eyes, but still sharp. When Daniel walked in, Harris stood up in surprise. "Ghost," he said in disbelief. Daniel gave a small nod. "Not a ghost anymore." They sat down, and Maya handed him a file. As Harris read, his face turned hard. "I knew something was off back then, but I never thought Blake would go this far. He's running everything," Daniel said. "The force, the city, the lies." Harris looked at them both. "Then we hit him where it hurts." The next morning, Harris made a few quiet phone calls. Old friends, retired officers, men who still believed in the badge. Together, they came up with a plan. They would trick Blake into thinking the evidence was being delivered in person. Maya would pretend to betray Daniel. She would tell Blake that Daniel wanted to make a deal and would meet him at an abandoned warehouse with all the files. It was dangerous, but it was their only chance. Hours later, Maya stood outside Blake's office. Her hands shook slightly, but she kept her face calm. He looked up when she walked in. "Back so soon?" he asked coldly. Maya nodded. "I changed my mind." Blake raised an eyebrow. "I found him," she said. "Daniel. He wants to talk. He says he'll hand over everything if you meet him. Just you." Blake leaned back in his chair. "Why would he trust you?" "I told him you suspended me. That I want revenge." Blake smiled slowly. "Clever girl." He stood up. "Tell me when and where." That night, the warehouse was silent. Daniel stood in the center, a black duffel bag by his feet. Maya waited nearby, hiding behind a wall with a small radio in her hand. Harris and two of his trusted men were hidden in nearby buildings, ready to record and witness everything. At exactly 9 p.m., a black car pulled in. Chief Blake stepped out alone, wearing a dark coat and gloves. He walked toward Daniel slowly. "No guns?" he asked. Daniel shook his head. "Just the truth." Blake laughed. "You should have stayed in the shadows." He stepped closer. "Give me the files. Now." Daniel pointed to the bag. "They're all there." Blake bent down to open the bag. But instead of files, it was empty. He looked up sharply. Daniel stared at him. "You know what your mistake was, Blake." Blake pulled a gun. "Tell me. You thought we'd play by your rules." Suddenly, floodlights lit up the building. Harris stepped out of the shadows, holding a camera. "We've got everything," he shouted. "Your threats, your lies. It's over." Blake turned to run, but more men blocked the exits. He looked around, furious. "You don't know who you're messing with," he screamed. Maya walked out, calm and strong. "No, Blake," she said. "You forgot who we were." The next morning, the news exploded. Police Chief Ronald Blake arrested for corruption, murder cover-up. Dr. Eliza Morgan's death linked to secret force crimes. Hero Officer Daniel Morgan comes forward after years in hiding. The city was shocked. People gathered at the station, leaving flowers in front of Eliza's photo. Maya watched it all from across the street. "She did it," she whispered. "She started this. We just finished it." Daniel stood beside her. "She saved lives," he said, "even after death." But as they turned to leave, a car parked nearby flashed its headlights twice. Inside, a man in a black cap watched them quietly. Then he picked up a phone. "They think it's over," he said. "But the real boss hasn't even shown his face yet." 1 week had passed since Chief Ronald Blake was arrested. The city was still in shock. News channels played the story day and night. People couldn't believe a man who wore the uniform for years was the mastermind behind so much pain. Daniel and Maya became quiet heroes. But peace didn't last long. Daniel was drinking coffee in a small cafe when a message popped up on his phone. It had no name, no number, just one sentence. "You've only scratched the surface." He looked around. No one seemed suspicious, but his instincts told him something was wrong. He rushed outside and called Maya. "We need to talk. Now." Later that night, they met in the same hidden diner where they had once met Harris. This time, Maya looked more serious than ever. "I've been doing some digging," she said. "Remember the man in the black cap who watched us near the station? I found him." She placed a photo on the table. It was a blurry image of a man getting into a car. The license plate was traced to a fake address. Maya continued. "He used to be in the military. Real name, Victor Kane. He disappeared 5 years ago. No record since." Daniel's face turned pale. "I know that name," he said softly. "He wasn't just a soldier. He trained elite teams, including the one Blake used for Black Ops." Maya leaned forward. "He's the real boss, isn't he?" Daniel nodded. "Blake was just the puppet. Kane is the one who created the whole operation." Maya whispered. "Then we didn't finish it." "No," Daniel said. "We just opened the door." Meanwhile, Victor Kane sat in a dark room, looking at a wall filled with photos. Daniel, Maya, Harris, Eliza. Red strings connected their faces. He picked up a phone and spoke just 2 words. "It's time." The next morning, chaos broke out. 3 key witnesses in Blake's case disappeared. The judge who approved Blake's arrest resigned overnight. And Lieutenant Harris was found unconscious in his home, barely alive. Daniel and Maya rushed to the hospital. Harris had a head wound and broken ribs. Daniel sat by his side. "Who did this?" he asked. Harris opened his eyes slightly and whispered, "Kane. He's cleaning up." Then he passed out again. Daniel's fists tightened. "This ends now." Daniel and Maya went underground. They contacted every honest officer left, gathered every piece of evidence they hadn't used, and then they did something risky. They leaked it all, this time to international media. Emails, bank records, military documents, training logs, everything that pointed to Victor Kane. One photo showed Kane shaking hands with powerful men, businessmen, foreign agents, and even politicians. The world saw it, and suddenly, Kane was no longer invisible. 3 nights later, a car pulled up to a forest cabin outside the city. Daniel and Maya were inside waiting. They knew Kane would come. He always finished what he started. At midnight, the door creaked open. Kane stepped inside, tall, calm, and dangerous. "I taught you better than this," he said, looking at Daniel. Daniel stood still. "You taught me how to survive, not how to kill innocent people." Kane smiled coldly. "Innocence is just another mask, just like you wore for years." Maya stepped beside Daniel. "You're done, Kane. The world knows." Kane laughed. "You think this ends with me? There are others. Always others." Daniel raised his phone and showed him the screen, live recording. Everything Kane said was being streamed. "Maybe there are others," Daniel said, "but they won't have you." Suddenly, red lights appeared through the windows. Police, media, international agents. Kane stood still for a moment, then slowly raised his hands. "It was never about money," he said. "It was about control." 2 days later, Kane was officially charged. The case shook governments and forced new laws to be written. Dozens of officers were removed. New leaders were chosen. And finally, Eliza Morgan was honored publicly for her courage, her sacrifice, and the truth she fought for. Daniel stood on the stage, holding her photo. She didn't carry a gun. She didn't wear a badge. But she fought harder than any of us. The crowd stood in silence. Many had tears in their eyes. Weeks later, Daniel visited a quiet house in the countryside. A woman opened the door, smiling. Behind her stood a young boy with Eliza's eyes. Daniel knelt down and opened his arms. The boy ran into them. Maya watched from the car, smiling gently.